Good evening, everyone. I'd like to gavel us to order and welcome you all to the May 13th regular school board meeting of the Yellow Springs School District. This is our monthly meeting where every month we do the business that needs to be done. I'll say just a couple of things that I often say at the beginning of these meetings. We never discuss student matters in public session. Sometimes that would be an issue, so I just remind you all that state law, federal law, we don't do that in a public session. It's good to be back in person. It's nice to be getting back to normal and sort of on a glide path to out of this whole COVID situation. So the first thing I need to do is to have the treasurer call us to order, please.
Hahn.
Here.
Fairhaven.
Here.
Ellison. McQueen. Turner.
Here. Thank you for that. Next item of business 1.3, we have approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, I think you guys are just going to be doing like two-part harmony all evening long.
No fighting this time.
Do we have any edits, corrections, anything that needs? Call the roll.
Hahn.
Yes.
Fairhaven.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Thanks for that. I want to acknowledge all the persons present. Again, we haven't had people present for a while. We started meeting in person a few months ago. Otherwise, we've been on Zoom. So it's nice to have bodies in the room. But I do remind everybody that if you haven't signed in to our sign-up sheet, please do. We like to have a record of who's here. And so if you haven't put your name there out on the table outside, please make sure to do so. We'll go on to section 2 of the agenda, and this is our communications and reports. We'll acknowledge those communications. And then section 2.2, community comments. We've been doing this again via the chat function on Zoom, as I'm sure many of you know, but today we will turn off that chat function since we're able to be here in person. So this is the point of the meeting where we invite anybody who would like to come up and address the board to do so. Come to the microphone, please, because this is being streamed. Identify yourself, identify your connection to the schools and to the town, and I will also just remind people, since we have a number of people in the room, it has always been our practice to limit community comments to 3 minutes a person so that everybody has a chance to speak and nobody monopolizes the mic. So with that said, would anybody like to address the board? Going once? Going twice? All right. I like banging my gavel, which I wasn't able to do on Zoom. We'll move to item 2.3 on the agenda, and that's our Schools in Action presentation.
If I might.
Yeah.
I'm so anxious.
Okay.
If I might, the first presentation is for Ms. Amin's, the big map out project. So I know this person is going to speak about that in her report, but Sarah Amin could not be with us this evening.
Oh.
So we have a lovely presentation, and I ask you to enjoy it.
Okay.
So that was the culmination of really a year's worth of work. And I had the good fortune of attending the culmination at Agraria about 2 weeks ago. And it was lovely. So in the barn, all the presentations were set up. Kids explored the property. They took their parents down to the creek. It was quite lovely. So a job well done both for Ms. Lee as well as the teachers involved, and then the students just were amazing. I do know that I think the third graders, you saw the video that they did that type of media piece as their part of this project. And then I believe Agraria is sending out a survey to families to see what impact did this have on kind of your family over the year, kind of this prolonged engagement with you.
I didn't know that Sal wasn't going to be with us tonight, so I'm really...
It's a holiday.
Yeah, no, it's tough because I really, what a great project. Particularly, I mean, it almost goes without saying, in a year when kids were bottled up and isolated anyway, that they having this kind of opportunity, and we really want to thank Agraria for partnering with us on this, because I think it created an opportunity for our Rosemont students that was really just special and meaningful, particularly this year. So well done, everybody, and thanks so much.
And I want to give a shout out to our Yellow Springs High School grad, Emily Colbert, who was part of that.
Yes? Yeah. Well done. Okay. So the next piece of this, you want to do the...
The next, actually, I believe my principal wants to do this, so it's a very special...
Yeah, this is the tough part of the evening.
This is the happy part. Who would like to go first?
I have one. Okay, I'll go first. So we have several teachers who are retiring at the end of this year. And this has been, as they all know, I can't tell you how crazy this year has been, but the three ladies here that we're about to recognize have been really, really instrumental, helpful, and just honestly just nice. When it came to me transitioning in this year, they were. I mean, we have Jody kind of referred to, unfortunately, is not here. Victoria Hitchcock, Vicki Hitchcock, and Margaret Peg Morgan. They were. I mean, Peg sat with me every Monday all year long, and was a part of the advisory team, and helped me make decisions and navigate a completely uncharted territory for me. She was a wealth of information. She helped us. She brought a lot of insight to the team, and you know, I enjoyed that time working with you, Peg, and we're going to miss you a great deal. Vicki, I mean, she was like she had so much knowledge. If I had a question, I knew I could go to her. If there was a time where I wasn't going to be in the building, I knew that if the teacher had a question, they could go to her. She was, you know, like my right-hand person in a lot of ways, and so it was great to be able to spend this time with you and get to know you, especially over the last few weeks as the kids are back and we have some special students that need extra loving. So we get to get some very special kids that we get to talk a lot this week. So it's been great to work with you, and everyone in the building is going to miss you, and everyone's going to miss you, Peg. And Jody, unfortunately, could not be here. Her class, I had the great fortune to sit in several of her lessons at the beginning of this year. And she literally she runs her classroom like a mini college campus. Her kids in that sixth grade classroom are reading, they are engaging, they are applying knowledge, they are like synthesizing things, they are making insights. It is fascinating to watch. And she is always pushing, even when we were virtual, you know, she would, you know, say in her very no-nonsense way, well, hey, brother, hey, sister, we gotta get on here, we gotta go rise up, and we're gonna work this out. Come on, you gotta log some of your camera, get on the camera. You know, she was very, she was going, you were gonna learn. There was no doubt about it. And so All three of them are going to be sorely, sorely missed by every member of the Mills Lawn community. We are sad to see them go, but very happy for whatever it is they choose to do in the future. We hope that they know that they will always have a home at Mills Lawn, and we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you guys so much for your
So
service.
why don't we have Peg, why don't you come up and get your plaque, and then you want to speak? I heard you wanted to speak tonight.
I appreciate the opportunity I had here to work creatively, to be an active learner, and to work with the children of Yellow Springs all these years. It's been a wonderful journey, having parents come up and share with me, you know, where their kids are now, and I don't know. So I appreciate the opportunity I've had to be a part of this learning community.
So Peg's been with us for
21 years.
And I'm going to say from the superintendent, it's been my pleasure and will be sorely missed.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Thank you, Yellow Springs.
Miss Vicki Hitchcock.
I'll have to stand because I'm not very tall. Most of even my fourth graders, some of them are taller than me.
Vicki's been here since 1991, and the list of roles that she's had is so extensive. She's done it all. So this is for all of you here with these retirements. Bravo. It's well deserved. So, would you like to come up and speak to everyone?
I can stay right here and speak.
Okay.
Fine. I really want to thank, I started at Yellow Springs doing my student teaching, and I never left. So I was at the high school, middle school for 20 years, and I've been here at Mills Lawn for 10 years. And I plan to be a couple more years, but bittersweet year for me, and it's time to go. But I wish Mills Lawn the best, and the high school and middle school with Jack. Jack was one of, there's a lot of teachers that I helped hire at the high school, middle school, and I am now teaching students of former students. And I said, I don't want to be here so long that I teach the third generation. So it's time to go. Thank you.
You will be missed.
Thank you.
Jody is not here, but Jody has also been here for, I think, 31 years. She started in 1990.
Correct.
Yeah, and she also has expressed, like Vicki, that she has taught students and students of students, and she also is not ready to teach students of students of students. So we will definitely miss Jody as well, and we wish her nothing but the best.
Before I introduce or talk about Desiree, I want to congratulate each of you. Some of my most fond memories were my first 2 years teaching down here. I had the pleasure of teaching next door to Jody Pettiford. And for those of you who know Jody, if you work closely with her, she will have an impact on you. She's such a powerful person. And my first 2 years working with Peg, I remember when we were bringing the donuts down after safety patrol, and Peg's class was always so neat and orderly and appreciative, and she's such a great role model for our young kids. And then when I went up to the middle school, Vicki in many ways was like a mother to me, and I appreciate everything she's done. And those three have certainly had such an impact on our kids. So congratulations.
Thank you, Joe.
So Desiree, I've worked with Desiree for 13 years now in our building. She is in her 17th year in Yellow Springs. When I think about somebody being a good teacher, the first qualification is being a good person. And I don't know that I've ever met a person that's more kind than Desiree Nickel. So every interaction I've ever had with her is positive, it's proactive, it's solution-oriented. She never makes excuses. She always looks for solutions. When you talk to the kids about her, they love her. They love her classroom. They love the way she presents stuff, the emotion that she brings to the classroom. And she served our school in so many different ways. So she's not just a great teacher, but a great educator. With our school newspaper, the GSA, the Charlotte Drake Youth Philanthropy, and on and on. And this year, when we transitioned to online, it was so hard. And Desiree knew that this was her last year going into the year, and she jumped in with both feet. And from the beginning, all the other teachers were talking about how they should do it the way Desiree is doing it. And I think that's a testament to her work ethic and her commitment to our kids in this community. So I just want to thank Desiree and congratulate her. And Desiree, I wish you a long, happy, healthy retirement.
Thank you.
Desiree, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Sure. I did the math before I came over and realized I've been in the education field for 41 years, and it's been a real joy to spend my last 17 in Yellow Springs, in the community in which I live, and where I plan to stay. And the children, of course, we know are awesome, amazing, creative, crazy, wild, unpredictable, everything you can imagine, every adjective. But I do want to give a shout out to the colleagues and staff that I've worked with over the years. You have gold here in the system, in your faculty, in staff, supportive staff, and it's been, for me, real energizing and just a great experience to work with people who really care, not the clock in, clock out types, but people who will stay late, get there early, work over their lunch break, and are just really committed to the children in this community. And so professional and so smart. So it's been a real pleasure to work here. I was hired by Vicki and John Gudgel. Jody Pettiford was my son's 5th and 6th grade teacher, one of the best teachers he ever had. And Peggy and I go way back as friends. So, and then my last principal is Jack. So between John Gudgel and Jack, best leadership I could imagine. So thank you for my 17 years. I'll see everybody around.
Well, and then finally, just on behalf of the board, thank all of you for your collective well over 100 years of service to these children and their children's children. Bittersweet indeed, but thank you very much for all of your commitment. We'll move on now to item 2.4, our administrative reports. And Donna, why don't we have the student services report first?
All right. Just wanted to give a few announcements about the 100% online program. We are not, it looks like, going to be offering that program next year, and so I wanted to make that clear. The state allows school districts flexibility to offer their school services remotely due to the pandemic this year. And that was a special arrangement the state allowed when the school districts, including us, had to turn in a remote learning plan to the Ohio Department of Education. We had some requirements to meet. And so thus far, the state has not extended that flexibility for next year. So I wanted to let you know about that. Each of our families who are participating currently will get a notice about that. And then I wanted to give them an opportunity to call me to be able to discuss any situations they might have regarding special circumstances where they might have concerns for next year. And I did have some questions about home instruction and things like that. Home instruction is something that has always been offered in school districts. It's really set up to be available to students who have an illness and are too ill to come to school for an extended period of time. And then school districts are required to offer services, and that service is meant to be some basic educational service to keep the student basically afloat in their classes as best they can, depending on the illness until they're able to return. So So if there are situations like that, it's an application process. The doctor would fill out the application and let us know that the child needs to be out for a certain amount of time due to illness. So that will be shared with parents because I think there's some confusion about that as well. So if anything changes with that, we'll be sure to let all of our parents know that are participating in the program that has changed. Because sometimes things change on us, as we know this year.
Really?
But right now, we're not seeing any provision for that. Then the next thing that I had was about the Ohio Outreach Project, and that is a collaboration, a grant that was offered in collaboration with the Ohio State University School of Dentistry, and the Outreach Ohio Project is offering mobile dental services to school districts. So this will allow students, if their parents want to participate, will get an exam by a dentist. They, here on site at the school, they will get a dental cleaning by a hygienist, a fluoride treatment, and get their back molars cleaned or sealed for free. And then they, from the dentist's exam, will get a follow-up report where they can take it to their own dentist, or if treatment is needed, they can go to an outreach grant program clinic in Clark County and get the follow-up treatment. They work with all insurances, and if needed, it would be a free treatment. They wouldn't turn anybody, any child away that needed any dental service. And so we're looking to schedule that, and the date's going to be August 30th through the 3rd. They will be in their buildings. And that's it.
Great. That's exciting. Thank you. Jack?
Sure, thank you. So the first thing I want to talk about is our spring testing. So spring testing, in spite of everything this year, still went on. We were very intentional in trying to give our students who are 100% online an opportunity to successfully participate without having the stress of coming into the building. So I want to thank Michael Greitzer and Antioch University Midwest. So they opened their auditorium to us for 6 days of testing for our online-only students. So they were able to be in a testing setting without having to come into our school building, and then they opened their multi-purpose room for all of our AP testing. So it was really nice. With COVID, we rearranged all of our classrooms to try to maximize our space, but that left us with no special rooms. So anytime we have a special event, we can have an empty room anywhere. So it was great for them. Out of all of our students, we only had one student opt out of one test. So I was really proud of that effort, and a special thanks to Shannon Morano. She organizes all of the testing for us. And this year we had more logistics because, again, we were trying to keep group sizes small and balance the COVID safety stuff with the testing requirements. So that is, we are doing our final retakes tomorrow, and then that will be in our review mirror. So, but again, a special thanks to Antioch Midwest. Last night we held our, I believe, 84th National Honor Society induction. And you can see a picture there. We held it in our gym, and we had pods of 4, so family groups could sit 7 feet apart from each other. And the gymnasium, we inducted 19 students into the National Honor Society, and it's really neat. We did our first National Honor Society inductions in 1938. The NHS advisor had a little book that they wrote all the inductees in that first year, and every year since 1938, the names have been added to that book. And last night was the first time we've had to add a page to the book. So last night we inducted our 1,025th student since 1938 into the National Honor Society. So it's really remarkable, and it's the way we do our National Honor Society. We have existing members welcome the new members in, and it's so powerful to see our young people talking about their peers and welcoming them. And you can see Delia there helping Owen as Owen was introducing the pillar of character, and you see her helping him. All in all, it was a touching evening, and it's the first really event we've had since we've been back. And just the energy and the vibe was so positive. So I just want to congratulate all of those students on that accomplishment. And then just a quick rundown of the spring. Last year we didn't really have a spring, and all the things that our kids look forward to were taken away. So this year we were able to have a tennis season, a baseball season, a softball season, a track season. Our spring musical is going to happen. Last year we didn't have graduation. We're going to have that. It's going to be a step back towards the more traditional, but not quite. And then prom. So the first thing coming up, we have prom on Saturday. We got the Weird Pavilion. I was actually out there for the last planning meeting before I came here tonight. And it's a beautiful venue, and we are able to, through the generous contributions of different families and organizations, able to offer prom for free for every one of our juniors and seniors. So that's a really exciting thing. Normally it's around $40 or $50 a person, and they're going to be able to go this year for free, a free meal, free entertainment for the evening, free pictures. Basically, we want to say to the kids, we don't want anything to stand in the way of you being able to celebrate with your peers. So that's coming up, and then next week we have our spring instrumental program is going to be held in the front lawn of the high school. I think that will be 6th grade through 12th grade, so we're looking forward to that. That'll be our first in-person concert this year. And then we're going to have the spring musical experience on May 21st and 22nd. And that's actually, it's called Please Stand By. It's the Vice theater, where basically it's all self-written by our students, and they're going to be basically capturing their last year. And it includes stuff from around George Floyd, around the pandemic, and all these topics that were so relevant and are still relevant, but were so impactful to our students over the last year. And it's going to have speaking parts, singing parts, and a mix of all of those. So we're looking forward to that next Friday and Saturday. And then graduation, we will have back on the traditional Thursday night. One of the big takeaways from last year was how amazing the community clap out was, or the parade. So that is coming back this year. We're going to have that again. And so the families will parade around town, and then they'll end up back at the high school. And we're going to do more of a picnic style rather than a driving style on the south lawn. So I'm hoping for beautiful weather, but I'm looking forward to it. Our kids are looking forward to a great spring. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jack. When you engineered the graduation a year ago, you and your team, I think all of the board members looked at each other and said, we're never not going to be able to have a parade now.
Right.
That was just so extraordinary. We thought we're in too deep. So
for me, the kids were in tears when they came back.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's so impactful.
Yeah. No, but I mean, this is just so, this is in some ways the best report we've had in 15 months because we're doing things, again, the way we're supposed to be doing them. So thank you for that.
Where is the music experience, the musical experience going to be?
It is going to be on the South Lawn as well.
Oh,
So we're setting up, there's actually going to be 3 separate stages for it. So the different pieces can kind of have its own stage.
Nice.
So yes, it'll be there Friday and Saturday, starting at 6 o'clock.
Great.
Wonderful.
So we are finishing up all of the Space Virtuoso. Ms. Reichert cultivated this partnership with them, and the students got an opportunity to work with master orchestra players. They got to experience different types of music, and had one-on-one. There was a concert specifically just for our school that was done via a private YouTube performance. And then there were master classes that the kids got to take part in. And so the residency is coming to a close. The students really enjoyed it, and they are, in K through 2, they are doing a culmination project where they are filming dances. How did Ms. Riker explain it? They are feeling the music, right? So they're going to, how the music makes them feel, they're going to respond to the music, and she's filming it, and she's going to begin the editing process. So hopefully we'll have a really cool video to share at next month's board meeting. We were very happy that we were able to actually do a lot of our traditions at Mills Lawn, one of them being the bike hike. And the rain, we were so worried because it was the first thing that we were actually going to be able to do, and it threatened to rain all week. And the rain held off, so everybody participated, and the 5th grade will be theirs next week. But parents were able to come. They biked all over. There was one shoe fell apart in the middle of the bike ride, but we were able to work through that. And the rain for the second one, for the fourth grade bike ride, it literally held up right until they got back, and then it kind of poured. But it worked out perfectly, the timing was great, and everybody had a great time. We were so glad we got to be able to do that this year. And then we already spoke earlier about the big map out. When I say, I know they're doing they're going to do a survey to see how it impacted the students in terms of having this year-long project. This was one of the things when we were completely virtual, when we were in pods, like this was something that they got excited about from day one. They were super excited at the beginning during pickup to come and get their bags. Every time something got added to their bags, we had the kids in the pods, and I would drop in these little classes. They got these little itty bitty microscopes that they were able to like take out and look and go in and explore, like and really see details. That was the biggest deal for about 3 weeks. Like everybody had their microscope, and they were exploring every inch of the playground. I was doing recess duty in the middle of the winter, and I could not believe the number of live creatures they were able to find in January and February with these little microscopes. So they really took it to heart. They really got into mapping out the area. They really got into the outdoor observations, recording their findings, asking, if they never wanted to log off PBL because they always had something they wanted to share with Miss Amin. It was a really, really great experience. I also was able to go down to Agraria and see the final presentation. The maps were so cute. And so it was a really, really great experience for them, and I'm so glad they were able to do that this year. And we also will be doing our parade. We are not quite going to have our traditional graduation or promotion ceremony, but we are going to do the parade that went over really well last year, and the kids really liked it. So what we're going to actually do this year is extend it. So we talked to Jack, and we're going to actually begin our parade down at the high school, where students their cars will line up. Last year what we found was students actually asked if they could go through the parade 2 or 3 times because they had spent so much time decorating their cars, and they wanted people to see it, but it was so short that they didn't get the chance to do that. So we thought if we extended the route and so that they could show off all the work they're going to put into their cars. And so they're going to leave from the high school, down Dayton Senior. They're going to follow the same route they came last year, kind of, sort of, and cross over into Millfront parking lot, come through the yard, and we'll be in the back, get with we're going to have the setup there, and announce them, allow them to get their promotion certificate, and take pictures with their families, socially distanced, and their cars. So we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be on Wednesday the 26th at 6:30, the day before the high school graduation. So if anybody at 6:30 wants to come out and line the streets and wave to our 6th graders as they come down the street in their decorated cars, please do. They will love it.
Those kids both the elementary school kids and the high school kids, they're just beaming. They are just beaming. It is so, I got pretty teary-eyed because they were just so happy after such a miserable end. It was like, they were so joyous. So glad you. So Thomas, could you scroll down to those pictures again, please? So I just want to acknowledge the guy in the yellow coat helping the people the kids at the bicycle. He's sitting here. Thank you for your help, Gary.
Yes.
Making that
And I also was remiss earlier this evening in not thanking the Community Foundation, who has supported the Big Map Out project as well. Couldn't have done it without their support, and so thank you again. All of which is to say, Gary sitting over here as well. Even though much of this year was virtual, we still relied on the donors and volunteers that have always come through for the schools in a variety of ways. The folks that are making the prom possible, just another example of this, and this year it feels even more remarkable given the circumstances that we have enjoyed that kind of support from volunteers, from donors, and so again, thank you from the board for all of that. Anything else on our administrative reports? Thank you to the three of you for that, and we'll move on to item number 3, and that's our treasurer's report.
Okay, I hope this works. I have an Allison on Drive right now.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So this is the financial report as of the end of April for 2021. And I know this is pretty small for everyone to see, but this is the cash flow analysis. And we have most of the year completed, so most of this is actual, and the last 2 months are projected. And once again, this is all on our Board Docs website, if anybody wants to go through further look at this. And this is the budget to actual for the general fund as of the end of, just for the month of April, the actual compared to the estimate. And what I really want to talk about and highlight is this section right here. And this is for the 10 months. So we have actual for 10 months and we have budgeted for 10 months. And if you look at the top of this, this is the revenue. So we were pleasantly surprised when our revenue came in almost $500,000 ahead of projections. When I was doing the projections, back in July and August, we really weren't sure how our revenues were going to be because of the pandemic. And it turns out our property tax was a couple $100,000 ahead of projected. And then our income tax did come in ahead of projections. And the state had cut our state monies, and they reinstated some of that for this fiscal year. And then if we go down to the expenditures, and on the flip side, what you normally want is you want your actuals to be under budget, which is what is happening in this case. We've been very frugal, but still purchasing what we need to do to run the school district. And with the expenditures, we are almost $500,000 under budget. So when you look at those two together, once again, it's about $1 million that we were ahead of what is projected. And I want to caution everybody that, we've still got 2 months to get through, and this is normally when we have our some of our larger expenditures. So I'm hoping that we'll end the year on a good note, but right now it's trending more positive than we thought it was going to be at the beginning of this year because of the pandemic. And then the next pages have the actual, just for the 10 months as compared to the budget for the entire fiscal year. You can see the differences there. Where does the money come from? You can see the percentages, and most of it comes from the tax dollars. And then where does the money go? Most of it goes for salaries and benefits because we are a service organization. So, and then once again, the same information in just a little bit of a different format for the next 2 slides. And I'm going to see if I've been scrolling, I can go down page by page. And then also the expenditures. And then we have the bank reconciliation for all funds. And then we have the individual fund balances for all of our funds, and I think there's probably about 5 or 6 pages of those. And that concludes my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, also the happiest report we've had from you in many, many months. I just want to reiterate something you said at the outset of your report, Tammy. Tammy does a wonderful job of making all of this information available in a variety of different forms. It's all publicly available, and so if you are really interested in drilling down into our budget numbers, it's all there for you. Pie charts, graphs, tables, an Excel spreadsheet, whatever it is you want, you can find it. And I also just want to say thank you, Tammy. This has been an extraordinarily difficult year to do any kind of budget forecasting, given all of the uncertainty. And so you have kept a very steady hand on the rudder. And yeah, there are 2 months left to go. We don't know exactly how we'll close out the year, but this is a lot. It's a lot more optimistic than we might have thought about just a few months ago. So thank you for that. Are there other questions for Tammy? portion of our consent calendar, number 4. We have 2 items here, items 4.1, 4.2. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
That would be you then, over here, on my left. Second. So this is the approval of our 5-year financial forecast and a thanking item.
Are you ready for me?
Yep.
So I just want to talk about 4.2 quickly before we go into the 5-year forecast. The state auditor, one of the recommendations after the audit report is that whenever I close or open a bank account or investment account, that I bring it to the board for approval. And we are in the process of transitioning our software, so it was recommended that we just have one bank account rather than 2 that we have now. So we are going to approve, I'm asking the board to approve the closing of the payroll bank account. So it should make it easier and should save some money for you.
Great.
And now I want to talk about the 5-year forecast. And once again, this is also on Board Docs on the website. And basically, how the school district is funded is 50% of property tax, 17% income tax, and then we have the state foundation formula, which is the money that we get from the state, and then other local is 18%. So for real estate, and I apologize, this is a little bit hard for me to see, but as you can see, our real estate has increased for the past 4 years, some by larger amounts than others. And then in future years, it's projected to decrease a little bit, and then remain, and then increase in later years. And our income tax, and this tends to fluctuate, and it increased several years, and then it decreased because we had a large payment in one of those years. And then it decreased again, and it didn't decrease as much as I thought it was going to in fiscal year 21, but then it was projected to remain flat in fiscal year 22 and 23, and then increase in future years. And then state funding, I already mentioned that as part of my report, that we were cut in fiscal year 20, and then they reinstated some of it, but we were still down in fiscal year. Actually, we increased in fiscal year 21. And once again, I apologize, it's a little bit hard for me to see the screen. And my glasses are fogging up. That creates a special transfer. So, and then we also have the type of levies. So we have operating levies, and we have emergency levies, you have substitute emergency levies. Thank you, Thomas. And then we have permanent improvement levies, and then we also have you can have combination levies of bond issue and operating levies. So these are our levies. So we have 2 levies that are going to expire in December 31, 2024, and then we'll need to determine if we're going to put those levies on for the same time period or longer, or we're going to convert it to a substitute emergency levy. And the first time that we can go on the ballot is November of 2024.
24.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those are principal use for what?
General operating monies.
Okay.
In the general
salary.
Right.
Yeah. And then the permanent improvement levy, that was renewed right before I got here. And it is going to be up for renewal in 2022. So the first time that we can go on the ballot to renew that is November of 2022. And then we also have a bond levy, and that's 2.1 mils, and that expires in 2026. And then that just details the levies with the updated dollars and the updated millage. And then the other local category is tuition of enrollment, investment earnings. And we receive tuition from other districts for educating their students. And most of those students are foster children. And then we're restricted as to what we can invest in per the Ohio Revised Code. So basically, our mandate is preservation of principal. then also we received $6,020 for each open enrollment student. And here's a graph of some selected revenue. It has property tax and income tax. And then I also broke out the open enrollment revenue on this. And then once again, where does the money come from? And on the major expenditure assumptions, we have step increases for staff, and they're built into this forecast for each year. And in fiscal year 21 and 22, the staff received a 1% base salary increase and then step increases. And the future years are projecting a 1% salary increase on base salary for all staff, but that still needs to be negotiated, but I just put that in there as a placeholder. In future years, as soon as the level of staffing remains the same. And our benefits include a 3% increase in medical insurance premiums for fiscal year 2021, and the staff agreed to make some major changes in their health insurance plan, which brought that premium down to only a 3% increase. But for the next calendar year, which is, so half of that will be in this fiscal year and half will be in the next fiscal year, that's a 7.5% increase. And then where does the money go? And then as we compare the revenues to the expenditures, you can see that what you really want is you want your expenditures to be below your revenues. And then normally this is what we call a break-even point. So you can see we're right around the break-even point. We had that last year, and then for this fiscal year and beyond, we're projected to spend more than we receive. And I say projected. And then how do revenues compare to expenditures? Once again, same information in a different format. And what is the effect on the cash balance? Because you can have a deficit spending situation, but you still have a positive cash balance. So that's the end of the year cash balance. And then this line here is our 30-day operating cash. So basically the conclusion is at the end of the fiscal year 25, we will end the year with a negative amount. And if you look back to the forecast that I presented to the board in October, it was the end of fiscal year 2024 where we had a negative dollar amount. So we've been able to push our deficit out one more fiscal year. And as we end this fiscal year and we get actuals in, the anticipation is that we can keep pushing this out farther and farther and continue to stretch our money. And that's the goal. But, and like I said, that, the 5-year forecast is a planning document. And it's a living, breathing document. It changes. But what it is, it's a roadmap. So we can make decisions based on that when we have time to plan. And that's all I have. Have any questions?
That's great. Yeah, let me just again reiterate that 6 months ago we were looking at 2024, now we're looking at 2025. That's good news. And also to reiterate, lots of things change between now and 2025. State funding could be more generous, state funding could become less generous, and there's no way to predict those things. As you say, this is a living document and it provides us a roadmap, but it's not set in stone by any means. Questions on the 5-year forecast? Thank you for that work. And so we have the two items. We have the motion. Any other? Call the roll, please.
Okay. Mayor Henry?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Hahn?
Yes. Okay, and again, thank you for that, Tammy. So we'll now move to item 5, the superintendent's update.
Thank you. Well, we have 10 days left. I am not counting. It's been an interesting year, and I want to give a public thank you to our teachers and staff, to our bus drivers and custodians, central office staff, our other support staff, families, students, and the broader community for supporting us during this year. Some parts were darker than others, but we have made it, and things are looking up, and we have 10 days left. So, yay us.
Here, here.
I just want to mention later in the next section, I'm going to ask you to approve our summer programs for students. That flyer has gone out today, I believe, this afternoon. So we are offering limited hard academics, mainly at high school, some credit recovery, some math, and then here at Mills Lawn for selected grades, some reading and math. The majority of our summer programs will be in programming, experiential. So an art camp, a music camp, yoga, tennis, etc. So parents can find those opportunities. We can push communication out. And then I would like to invite the board as a member of the Inclusive and Resilient Yellow Springs Coalition. They are sponsoring a virtual cost of poverty experience. So I've included that in my update on June 30 from 5 to 6:30. Unfortunately, I will be out of town, but I did say that I would mention it publicly. So it's an excellent experience, and I encourage everyone, quite honestly, to participate.
Terry, did you say June 30th?
June 30?
June 30.
5 to 6:30 p.m. It's a 90-minute experience.
Thank you.
And that's my update.
That's your update. Okay, well then we'll move on to the administrative portion of our consent calendar, and that is a long one. It's items 6.1 through 6.13. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Thank you for that. Okay, walk us through.
Okay. I have a presentation here about our facilities master plan. So I'm going to recommend that after this presentation, the board approve the district's facilities master plan, which is attached to the board docs as the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission Option 1. This is for a new K-12 at the Eden Road site for a total of $35.5 million with an extended local partnership program credit, 26% should the board vote to have this plan go to the voters and be approved. So as folks look at this presentation, I just want to make a few comments. You know, there's been a lot of talk, really in social media, because I think that that's perhaps where people think things get done. And I would encourage everyone to meet like this and speak like this. Because it's so easy for misrepresentation to happen, and then it's hard to correct. I'm always going to assume positive intent, but sometimes when the same thing is said over and over, I have to question why. So I have tried to be very transparent in this process and very open. I'm willing to meet with anyone. But I think if we are going to have a discussion about what is right for Yellow Springs schools and what is right for the Yellow Springs community, we need to do so and make sure that we all take personal responsibility for sharing only factual information. It's just so important. Case in point, there's been some discussion about demolition of Mills Lawn. So if you go into board docs and look at the recommendation, I'm going to ask the board to approve, there is a line in there that allows for a monetary amount for the demolition of Mills Lawn. That's standard. That means should we decide that we want to do that, there's money for that. That in no way means we have talked about doing that, because for the record, we have not. I appreciate all of you. What's that?
Responsible planning.
Correct. I appreciate everyone from the Save Mills Lawn Green Space, who I assume are here tonight, so thank you. We not made any decisions about the property because it's a school, it's operational. You know, we will have to, but we've not. Not a single one. So I want to ask everyone to engage, but be responsible and make sure that when you are talking about this, you are presenting factual information, and when you hear others present non-factual information, that you politely correct that. So, there's a presentation. There are some folks from our community advisory team here tonight, and I won't put you on the spot to have to do the presentation. It's just some slides, some summary slides. But I'm sure the board might have questions, or you can answer them as directed by the board. And our architect who assisted us in this process is also with us this evening. So, okay, Steph. Okay, so next slide, please. So our process, we started roughly February, maybe. We had 3 goals. How do we think about facilities in connection with the vision for the district and come up with a plan that is educationally fantastic, financially appropriate, and community supportive? So here's our timeline. So we had a community advisory team, that's the gold bar. We had an educational visioning team. That team was mainly comprised of teachers and students. There were some parents on that team, but mainly teachers and students who met during the school day and were trying to vision, hey, what would our ideal learning space look like? And then we had 3 community forums. We did a survey. Tammy was in charge of the finance team. Boy, I did not have I'll try to see. It's the fall. Okay. The community advisory team, the goal, to represent the Yellow Springs community in the process of understanding educational needs. That's important. Educational needs, facility conditions, and financial implications to advise on the development of an appropriate facility master plan. So our CAT team, which was really the decision-making team, 41 participants. This group was comprised of parents, residents, business owners, civic leaders, students, and administrators. We met virtually the entire time, and we had 6 meetings through January through April. So here's a summary of some very long discussions that we had. So, we had to consider, do we renovate, FTF is an acronym that means Facilities Task Force, which met, I'm going to call it PC, pre-COVID. Renovate Facility Task Force Essential High Priority Items. How do we keep the buildings warm, cool, safe, and dry? Roughly, that would be a cost of $12.1 million. We discussed renovating the buildings based upon Facility Task Force high priority items. That at a cost of $22.3 million. We discussed renovating, using the Facility Task Force high and medium priority items at a cost of $32.9 million. So this demo reno ad, K-12 at the Enon Road campus, that's the McKinney Middle and Yellow Springs High School site. That would be $24.5 million after the $8.5 million ELP credit. So roughly, what's that, 32, 33? Or a new K-12 at the Enon Road campus. This says 25.9 local share after 9.1 state refund. I'm going to tell you the actual cost, and this is after the 2021 cost census, $35.5 million. With a 26% ELP credit, which, according to my calculations, is 9.255. So those were our options. ELP credit. ELP, thank you, is part of the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, OFCC, ELP means Expedited Local Partnership Program. So the OFCC has 2 programs for districts. You can be in the CFAP program, which is the Classroom Facilities Assistance Program for ELP. Generally, schools in CFAP are those poorer districts that have just low wealth. We do not fall into that category, but we do qualify for an ELP credit. So these were the options that the CAT team discussed at length. And we went through all of the proposals, and the architects kind of guided us through that process to explain to us what different things meant and required. Okay? We were able to eliminate all of them except the new K-12 at the Eden Road campus. I think I'm going to summarize the conversation I heard through all the meetings, and that was, if we're going to spend the money, we're going to spend the money, not to renovate something that perhaps should just be replaced. Okay? So there was a pretty robust discussion about location. So you can see where it says 8.8 acres, that is this site that we are on. That is the Mills Lawn School site. The site on the far left, it says plus or minus 10 acres. That is a site at, a proposed site at Antioch. In the middle, at 34.9 acres, is the current middle school, high school site. So the OFCC really let me change my word. The OFCC recommends that sites for a K-12 of our size be 42, 45 acres. That's for the whole thing, if you're doing athletics, etc. So you see the closest site that we have that's that kind of acreage is the current middle school, high school. Mills Lawn, quite honestly, is lovely, but it's just too small. And then the Antioch property, well, go to the next slide. There we go. So Mills Lawn, less than 9 acres, is too small, and it would be detrimental to the neighborhood. I think we all understand that. Antioch parcel, only 10 acres, remote from the stadium facility, and we put considerable money into redoing our track this year. And not only was it never actually offered by the college, and that's, nothing against Antioch, we just didn't even get that far because the thinking of the CAT team was the district already owns property, so why don't we use perhaps what we own? Which leaves the Eden Road campus, 34 acres, adjacent to the stadium facility, minimal impact to the neighboring area. Okay? When is the right time for Yellow Springs? So state shares have been trending down over recent years. Ours actually recently peaked at 28%. It's currently 26%. Waiting may reduce the state contribution. So it was the recommendation of the CAT team at our last meeting that I present to the board our facilities master plan, which is a new K-12 school at the Eden Road campus. And before I take it to the board for questions, I also want to say that this is not approval for a measure to go on the ballot. This is simply for approval of our facilities master plan. There's a very distinct difference in that. So, but I do see some CAT team members here.
Before we get there, Jerry, could you also just explain why it is necessary to approve a master plan even before we consider whether or not to put something on the ballot?
Well, first of all, we need to know where we're going, right? So that we can all speak clearly and accurately about that. And also, in order to proceed with the OFCC and the ELP program, the board has to have an approved master facility.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask if any CAT members?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please.
Any CAT CAT team members want to share anything? Hopefully I captured things.
I'll just, you go ahead.
Well, and I'm going to insist, up at the mic.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Hi, I'm Kennetta Sanford, and so one of the things that was most compelling for me was hearing from the students and hearing students talk about their needs and the needs of their fellow students. And so one of the recurring themes that came up was the issue of accessibility, and that's something that just doing the initial renovation of essential items wouldn't cover. And so that was something that I heard a lot of students talking about, and since they were talking about it, I figured it was really important. So that was really the moving and deciding factor for me that made me on board with, okay, I think that new is where we need to be headed, especially thinking about making more equitable schools and thinking about how we can better serve the student population no matter their ability.
Thank you. Please, Ed.
Yeah.
I was on the pre-COVID task force following the defeat of the 2018 levy, and I was also on this CAT advisory team. And I was very impressed with this CAT team that was a virtual experience, but as Terry was saying, I thought there was a real effort that we were meticulous with the facts. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of thought. This wasn't an easy or automatic decision by any means. There's a great deal of love for Mills Lawn, for this location. It's close to Glen Helen. It's got the beautiful Three Sisters. It's got the beautiful grounds. There was a lot of emotion and sadness that went into that. So clearly, although I also agreed with this decision, it's clearly the most sensible, practical thing for the district at this time. But clearly some things will be lost, other things will be gained. And I think it will open the door to a new era in Yellow Springs. I will just say that I am the spouse and the mother of 6 Yellow Springs graduates, including my spouse, our 5 children. And I'm also the grandmother of 3 current Yellow Springs students who may all graduate before this comes to fruition. But I have a deep love of this community and the school district. I'm so grateful for the school district, everything they've done for our family over 50 years, more than 50 years. So again, some things will be lost, but some things will be gained, I believe, in moving ahead with the K-12 plan of a single campus at East Eden Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Anybody else? Gary, you want to?
I just wanted to mention one factor in particular having to do with the thoughts to exclude certain options, the ones that were in particular that were partial renovations, that like just essential, and the thought was these buildings are rather old, worn out in some manner, and the thought was, okay, fine, you do the essential renovations, you spend $10–12 million. And you might just be fine for 3 to 5 years. 5 years down the road, all of a sudden there might be another $5 million of renovation that are critical. Another 5 to 10 years after that, another however many $1 million of necessary renovation. Because there's really the systems and how some of them are older than anybody in this room, and myself included. And ultimately, if you look at a 40-year timeline, the least expensive partial renovation approach might not be, could very likely not be the least expensive one over a longer lifetime, meaning the expected lifespan of a new facility. And that was a big factor in terms of thinking through that. So, thanks.
So to this point, the numbers that were shown for the different options, those were just for the renovation or whatever the option was, not for a continued consolidate, like renovating the facility task force high and medium prayer raise of 32.9 million may actually cost more than 32.9 million over the same time period we're talking about. The new facility at 25.9 million.
Yes. Yes, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
Like that's the upfront cost for these other.
Right, and the 32.9 renovate high and medium priority items, there is a whole subsection of low priority items that wasn't even considered in the 32.9.
So how many of the high, medium, and low priority items would be solved with the recommendation?
All of them.
Anybody else from the CAT group would like to just share their thoughts or anything else?
Can we introduce the architect?
Well, again, I want to thank you and all of your comrades who spent a long winter on Zoom doing all of this work. This would have been hard to do in person. It must have been much harder. I watched this work from a distance. Thank you and bravo, and it was really thoughtful. And I'm, thank you for bringing this recommendation to us as a master plan idea.
And if I can introduce them.
Yeah, please.
So the members of the CAT team here tonight are Heidi Hoover, Netta Stanford, Jerry Zernsky, Abby Cobb, and Parker Buckley. And then
and Donna Silver.
And Donna Silver. I see. Hiding back there. Anybody else that I missed? And then Todd Thackeray is from SHP, leading design, and he and his team, I think, helped make a virtual experience more intimate. This is hard stuff to discuss virtually, and so they were able to guide us through that process.
So Terry, how would you like us to proceed? I have a whole list of questions for you. Is this the right time to do that? And I may have a whole list of questions for our representative from HFP. Thank you for leading us through all of this. So I guess I just want to get a couple of things clarified. Can you talk a little bit about the rationale for a single campus site in the first place? Talk about it educationally and talk about it financially.
I'll talk a little bit about it both, and then others can certainly add. I think financially, certainly as part of the facilities task force discussion, is it more expensive to maintain two buildings or one? I think we came to the conclusion that it might be kind of the same, but what happens is that the cost per square foot to maintain a building is the same, but it's maintaining it in its current condition. So we could spend the same and maintain buildings that need repair to be in a continual state of needing repair, or maintain a new building to be in a continual state of a newer building. Educationally, for me, there's no question. There are so many times when we need to discuss things vertically, and both of our buildings are on different schedules, and even though we're not far apart, it really takes some maneuvering to get us all together, and if we can only do that 5 times a year on a professional development day, what a lost opportunity. I think in terms of student modeling, I know there's fear about younger students being with older students, but I would suspect that some of these children live with older siblings in the home, and things are okay. And it's part of educating, right? We model, adults model for children, older students model for younger students. So I think there's opportunity there. And we could do some interesting curricular things. And then I think just efficiency-wise in terms of instructional planning and organizational planning.
We have a couple of faculty, if I'm not mistaken, who have to shuttle between the two buildings.
We do.
And so even that, to make that more coherent in a sense, for some of those things that are shared across
Correct.
K through 6
Correct.
and 7 through 12.
Correct.
Okay. And so another question I wanted to clarify, because this came up a few years ago when we were going through all of this. The last time we decided not to engage with the state funding piece of this. And is it the case that the OFCC is unlikely to fund a renovation project? So that if we went that way, we would essentially be walking away from the state money.
So you have to, they have the, I'm going to say 2/3, 66%. If it costs more than that, in Todd, do I have the right percentage?
Yes.
66%. If it costs more than that to renovate rather than build, they will not approve it. You can submit a waiver. And I guess the best example I have of this are schools like if you're familiar with Cincinnati and Cincinnati Public. Some of those older buildings have not one but 20 original Brookwood tile drinking fountains. Those are the types of buildings that have real historical significance that the OFCC might grant a waiver for. Our consultant said we're in the, 90%?
Yeah, that's
easily
right.
high, that it would be unlikely that we would be granted a waiver.
Okay. And again,
Of the cost of building new.
Correct. Correct.
right. And then I guess, Todd, could you help us understand a little bit about how we get to these cost figures in the first place? Talk us just a little bit about what does construction cost and what are the advantages of doing sooner or disadvantages of waiting and so forth? And thank you for coming out this evening.
Great to be here. And let me first say thank you to all of you and all of the community advisory team and the students and all that participate in the educational visioning for all of your time and input to help bring this to consensus. Construction costs, I'll say right now things are very volatile and very high. And traditionally this doesn't go on forever. But we're in a unique point in time. Right now, most things are budgeting project costs for new schools in the neighborhood of $300 a square foot, $290 to $300. That does translate to renovation cost also. So those facility task force numbers were updated to current OFCC cost sets for renovation costs for different building components. So those are slightly higher than the facilities task force produced, a year and a half, 2 years ago, just due to inflation.
Yep.
But we adjusted those to create equivalency to the new construction costs that we were using this spring with the information that we have.
If I could just interrupt you for a moment. So when you say we're budgeting at $290 to $300 a square foot, what you're really referring to is that regardless of where this construction project takes place in the region, this is what it's going to cost.
Yes.
And in that sense, there's no room to negotiate a lower price if you pay in cash or under the table or anything like that. I just want this to be clear how we got to these numbers.
These numbers are not my numbers. These are the state's numbers from building hundreds and hundreds of school buildings across the state for the last 20 years.
Okay.
So they keep track of the cost sets and the inflation, and they try to adjust every year, and just this spring they did catch up. They took off briefly there for COVID, made that adjustment instead of April 2020 in December 2020, and then they adjusted again in April 2021.
Okay.
So they have been doing this for over 20 years now, and they're reliable, conservative, not extravagant numbers. Their numbers have been lean in recent years. So
we're not right. We're not talking about Brookwood tiles on the drinking fountains. That's not what you're getting for your $290 to $300 a square foot. Okay. And when we have the state mandated square footage, is that, is that?
Yes. It starts with an enrollment projection. In your enrollment projection, I think the number is 670, Terry?
It is 671, I believe.
Yeah.
So it is numbers of students times square footage per student, and they have formulas based on different sized buildings, and again, by the empirical data that they've produced of how many square feet it takes for elementary, middle, and high school students, and then times dollars per square foot that they adjust on an annual basis.
So in fact, the arithmetic problem here is actually pretty straightforward.
Yes.
It's construction costs over which we have no control multiplied by the number, the square footage cost number, by the amount of square foot the state mandates we have. That's based on the number of students we have, and you get to this figure. Am I understanding this correctly? Okay.
You got it.
Got it. And a small footnote to this, I was talking to a contractor who does home stuff, so in some ways totally not relevant to this, but what he said to me was that construction costs go up annually more than the rate of inflation. Is that your experience?
It varies, but certainly in the last year, it has significantly exceeded inflation as there have been shortages in wood, in steel, in a lot of building products.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to suss out here, right, because at some point in the next coming weeks, Terry is going to come to us to ask about a decision about when we might go on to the ballot. Is there an advantage to waiting? Do the prices, would you imagine that the prices might get better if we put this off for construction?
I wouldn't bet on that.
You're not putting money down on that? Okay.
My opinion is there's a bit of a bubble created by, I mean, wood's gone up over 300% in the last year. I don't think that's sustainable. I think it has to come back down. Something needs to happen in the marketplace to reconcile those high costs. So I think it will moderate, and by that, the state will tend to produce a fairly straight line in their inflationary costs and try not to overreact to those bubbles. So your numbers are not based on that bubble.
Okay. They have actually already been sort of adjusted for when we hope things get back to a little more like normal.
Right. They keep projecting these based on, they're setting these in April of 2021 for construction to start in the year 2022 or 23.
Okay.
So, again, their crystal ball isn't perfect either.
So the last question I want to ask you before I relinquish my grilling of you, and it follows up a little bit on Gary's question as well. The recommendation here is for a new facility, K-12, on the in-and-around campus. What's the life expectancy that this community could expect for that money of a building that we built it next year or the year after?
The typical projection is a 40 to 50-year building with a serviceable life.
So by the time anybody has to look at these facilities again, we're all dead.
That's my plan.
Yes.
Okay. Based on myself.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. So I'll stop.
So Todd, can I ask you a clarify? I want to correct something I said. It looks like our renovate to replace ratio here is about 80% of those buildings.
Okay. I think that's right. I'm not sure they applied the 2021 renovation cost sets to those numbers.
Right.
So
I want to make sure that everybody knows we're over the 66%.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So they had difficulty this year in that they increased the 20, or they made a 2020 adjustment in December of 2020, and then made the 2021 new construction cost set in April of 2021. The renovation cost sets for 2020 were supposed to come out in April, so I'm not sure that they've adjusted for 2021 yet.
Okay. So this 80% is most likely higher.
Right. It should be higher than that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, either for Terry, for our friends on the CAT team, or for Todd?
So I'm also assuming that, the renovate options and kicking the can down the road also doesn't account for the fact that construction costs just keep increasing.
Right.
So you have more buying power at today's dollar than you will almost color. Or
Correct.
so that's yet another reason.
Yes. And you're at historic low bond rates for borrowing. Last year, you were at 28%. That was your high point ever, or the last, since OFCC's been created. Your highest state share this year, it dropped to 26.
Right.
So you appear to have peaked and begin to come down. So that's part of the calculation in the community advisory team's debates between renovation without OFCC or new with OFCC and 26% reimbursement. So that will change in September of this year, or it will be recalculated across the state. And the trend, I would expect, would be you would go to a lesser percentage.
It's kind of drop down, yeah, right.
So, but all for your consideration.
I guess I would, if you feel comfortable, Todd, comparing sort of our CAT team with other groups that you've worked with, does anything stand out for you that seemed different? Anything that was the same? Just to kind of give us some perspective around, you've been doing this a while with plenty of groups.
Yeah.
I would just really be curious to hear about your opinion around what you thought about the group.
No, it's always every district, every school district is very unique with the geographic and historic background that you bring to it. To me, one of the most interesting parts of Yellow Springs is this building and this site. I mean, it's has such great community support and love for this location that I think that was more discussed. I mean, besides educational appropriateness and those kinds of needs of just addressing students' needs, that as a community issue was discussed and considered a lot. It really came down, in my opinion, to the total cost and the benefit of the 40 to 50-year life of new versus the higher cost of renovating two buildings to keep the way you're currently situated, so you could preserve this. But I think ultimately people began to believe that there's enough support for the importance of this location to the community that good will come out of this. And combining all the students into a single building, good will come out of that. So I think that's where we landed. And that, to me, is the beauty of bringing community together and having those diverse views come to consensus on what's best to move forward.
I appreciate your perspective.
I lied, I have one more question. Could you talk a little bit about environmental questions and what we might, what we might achieve with a new facility as recommended here in terms of, I don't know, energy savings, tighter building envelopes, those sorts of questions?
Certainly. Under the OCC program, under ELP, and if you move forward with this, the building will have to comply with LEED version 4.
It has to comply.
It has to comply.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It is currently required to achieve LEED version 4 silver to fully comply with the program requirements. So it will be extremely energy efficient. The envelope will be sealed tightly. The fresh air will be brought in intentionally and as needed rather than just breezing coming through.
Yeah.
We discussed things like geothermal. we discussed the possibility of photovoltaic net zero at the site. And in the end, we concluded, partly because of total cost, that we could not afford to consider budgeting specifically to guarantee that you get geothermal, but there are ways to design new systems in the building that would allow geothermal to be considered in the project, possibly as an alternate, or designed in a way that geothermal could be added in the future to that system. And photovoltaic could be added through power purchase agreements or different ways like that to finance those and get them installed. So this could be a phenomenally environmentally sustainable building.
Because I think we're currently at the high school certified LEED 10, right? I think that's, it's sort of a nightmare of leakiness. Other questions? Todd, thank you. This was, and again, thank you for coming out and letting us ask questions of you like this. I appreciate all the hard work you led us through with this. It was a wonderful process that you engineered for us, so much, much appreciated.
Greatly enjoyed it. Thank you.
And your team.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thanks to all of those CAT team members who sat through these meetings and really engaged. It's a lot of time that we can help them. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually 12 other items on this motion. Are there anything else that you wanted to add, Tammy? Do you want to make anything else here before you want to talk about any of these other items?
Yeah, I don't want to get in this too deep, but tonight I'm anticipating, Terry's anticipating, that you will adopt the master facilities plan, and then we will need to decide in the future when to place the levy on the ballot and what that levy is going to look like. So that's probably going to be at the next meeting. So just be prepared.
Right. It has, yeah. All of that stuff now has to be worked out. Dates and the structure of the levy.
There are some timelines
that we will be beholden to. Okay. Good. Well, then, thank you for that. That was a terrific presentation. And yeah, what else do we need to know in this motion?
So I'm just going to roll through some of these. Approval, I'm asking for your approval of our ESSER 1 and 2 expenditures. I'm just going to state for the record, these have changed and will change as our needs change. So it's like Donna has been working with me tirelessly on this, and Tammy, and it's a lot. But
yeah.
I asked for your approval, and I gave you a sheet detailing kind of where we are with that. Specialized job, supervisor job description, revised school calendar. So we approved the draft last year. This version is not changed much. However, we are ahead of the game, and so we've already identified parent-teacher conferences. And so this past year we did 2 evenings and 1 full day each semester. Next year we're doing 1 evening and 1 full day each semester, and that leaves us 2 evenings in April that we're going to have our exhibition nights. Okay. So, and one change for parents is teachers are going to have 5 days of PD, and so students will start on the 23rd, is that right? 23rd of August. Summer school job, administrative job description and approval of that program as discussed earlier. The high school program of studies, I asked you to approve that tonight. Normally this is going to come in January. School forest summer program, this is an annual request so that we can prep the trees for the holidays. I asked that you approve the Miami Valley contract for our tech coordinator so that we can continue to have stream board meetings. Thomas does a lot for the district, and he is critical. 6.10 is a contract with Sawyer for our tech coach. And he also has been a welcome addition, necessitated by the pandemic, but I think we've realized how much we need some guidance in that area. 6.11, annual approval of our membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association. 6.12, this is a pilot for us. We are going to participate with New York University PINE, which is the Program for Inclusion and Neurodiversity Education. Mills Lawn is going to pilot it, and it is a platform, a PD platform for all teachers, not just special education teachers, so that we can learn about autism and neurodiversity, so to help us support our students. And then 6.13, which I do want to take time on, this is our district honors recognitions and gifts. So the following teachers were nominated by the top 3 seniors at Yellow Springs High School for the Green ESC Howard L. Post Excellence in Education Award. Tamara Morrison was nominated by Finn Bledsoe. Yabo Iwarje was nominated by Natalie Galarza. And Brandon Lowry was nominated by Liam Patrick Haggett. So they are wonderful teachers, and kudos to them for being recognized. The district would also like to thank the following donors for their generous donations to the Outdoor Facilities Capital Campaign. Joyce Fishbane, Donald and Nancy Hutchman, Nathan and Edwina Graham, Michelle Burns and John DeWine, Karen Lemkow, Diane Abendroth, Michael Harris, Teresa Graves-Streeter, Andrew Thomas Rydvansky, Jane and Robert Scott, Jonathan and Andy Roberts, Max and Abigail Crone, Derek and Catherine Dinkaloo, Kay Koninger, David Warren, and Steve O'Leary. We are so grateful to them. We cannot survive and thrive without your support, so thank you.
Yeah. And Terry, am I correct that we are actually getting close to the completion of the phase 1 of that facility project? Yeah, the weather has
finally.
Yeah.
So yes, the track is very close, and the next part of that project will be the building.
So the track is almost ready for use, which means no one has any excuse this summer not to get out there and walk off the COVID.
That would be correct. Okay. You can do so. It's not ready yet, but when it is, we will let you know, and you can do so without risk of injury or great bodily harm.
Or falling into the broken sewer line.
Correct.
Great. Questions about any of that before we take the vote? All right, we're going to call that, please.
Turner.
Yes.
Khan.
Yes.
Inman.
Yes.
Exciting. We'll move now to item 7, the personnel portion of our consent calendar, and this is items 7.1 through 7.4. Motion? Thank you.
So I'm going to ask for you to approve all of this, but I will make a couple of comments. This is the time of year where people transition. So I just want to say this is normal. We have 4 retirements in the district, so that's a lot for our district our size, and it's not a negative thing. It's,
Call the roll, please.
Khan.
Yes.
Inman.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
So I would like to introduce Megan Winston, who is with us tonight. She will take over at the end of the year when Michelle Person departs to pursue her other pursuits that she is excited about. So Megan, you want to stand? Megan is currently an assistant principal at Senior High School, but has been also an assistant principal at Thurgood Marshall in DPS, but principal of Forest Man Elementary in DPS as well. So welcome to the district. Thank you.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right, okay, so now we'll go to item number 8, board communications. We don't have a Greene County Career Center report this evening because our representative was unable to join us. Do we have any other board member items? I'm going to do a plug, and bit of, shameless paternal promotion for the discussion being organized on the 18th, next week is the 18th?
Yes.
On Asian Americans. That was in the paper, I think it's in the front page of the paper this week. It is in fact the case that my daughter is involved in that conversation, but I hope that people are able, it's on Zoom, so to tune into that discussion of Asian American experience with three folks here from Canada. Anything else? Okay. The board will be going into an executive session. We will not be returning to vote on anything, so this will end the public portion of tonight's meeting. Do I have a motion?
Second?
Okay. Call, please.
Mayor Evans?
Yes.
Turner? Fine.
Yes. Thank you all for coming out. Nice to be in a room with real people, three-dimensional people. And have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
It is recognized with your
You looked just like you did on the TV screen.
Are you going to?